And joining us now on Israel's hearing in The Hague is human rights lawyer, author, filmmaker, and executive director of the Lawfare Project, Brooke Goldstein. Brooke, thank you for joining us today on this really complex day. They're meeting in The Hague really today. Cruel and ironic, especially after everything that happened here in Israel, the victim of the war crimes. Why is Israel even bothering to show up?
That is a really good question. I am just baffled why Israel would have decided that this is in its strategic interest. You know, wars are not won on the defense. And right now, Israel is fighting a war not just on the actual battlefield, but also a war in the lawfare arena. And this has been a war that's been going on for the past 20 years, where international legal systems are manipulated to undermine the basic right of Israel as a sovereign democratic country to self-defense. And I think the International Court of Justice, the petition that South Africa is bringing, is an act of absolute lawfare, and it is not in the interest of Israel to go before this court to legitimize this court as though it has any say or any authority over what Israel can and cannot do to protect the lives of its citizens.
Definitely, and you know, South Africa wants to make it all about the things that happened after October 7th. We're seeing now on the ground in Gaza. Is there any talk about what happened on the day itself? Because as everyone remembers, October 6th, there was a ceasefire. Everything was quiet. What's the view on that over there? Well,
we heard in the opening arguments of the court, this actually has nothing to do with what happened on October the 7th. They're talking about 1948. They want to delegitimize Israel's basic right to exist as a Jewish state. And I want to emphasize the fact that this court, the International Court of Justice, is the legal arm of the United Nations. The United Nations is a democracy of totalitarian dictatorships that has absolutely no authority. Anybody knows that. And to take this legal arm and to pretend, while we're in the middle of the war, while Israeli soldiers, men and women, are risking their lives on the battlefield, what kind of message is Israel sending our IDF soldiers when they're asking for permission and they're, behaving as a defendant in a genocide trial, as though we need permission from the same court that issued an advisory opinion declaring that Israel's security barrier is a violation of international law? If the ICJ had its way, there would have been no wall, no barrier whatsoever for Hamas to break down and commit the atrocities it did on October the 7th.
Totally, and one of the craziest pictures that I saw today were of 4 hostages, the 4 girls, the soldiers that were released this week, sitting in front of the judges saying, really, what can I say? Because, obviously they can't talk and they silenced. Now, if the court rules against us, what's likely the ruling? What's supposed to happen for viewers who still don't know what's going to happen?
Look, this is a lose-lose situation. Even if Israel wins, it loses because it will have set a precedent that Israel is not a sovereign democracy that can engage in defensive military maneuvers to defend its citizens, that it will have to argue on the defense or ask for permission from a court made up of judges that have no authority over it.
Lebanese, German, right? A few.
These are countries that do not have their own impartial judiciary. Why is it that they stand trial over the Jewish state? Historically, the Jewish people have faced genocide after genocide, and nobody has come to our assistance. Nobody has helped us. We do not have to ask permission from anybody to defend our own citizens from genocidal terrorists.
That's a very strong message. South Africa, a country, no doubt, has a long history that could have taken them to court as well. How do they dare really standing there and talking about Israel?
It is absurd. It is just lunacy. I have no kind words for this, and it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. I don't know why the Netanyahu government decided that it was in its interests to participate in this show trial, because I don't think we have any chance at winning. I think the court is biased against Israel. Again, there's no due process. By the way, when they issued their advisory opinion declaring Israel's security barrier a violation of international law, The court refused to enter into evidence the very relevant fact that the security fence contributes to a decline in the loss of human lives. They refuse to hear testimonies from victims of terrorism. And there's actually a wonderful ad right now circulating on Israeli TV showing that the hostages, the people who are being tortured and raped and cannot speak. They cannot testify before the court. The whole thing is a farce.
It's totally true, and I think that history repeats itself. Like in the Holocaust now again. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's a lose-lose situation, as you said, but we have to hope.
Thank you so much for
joining us today.